everybody, and welcome back. Good to talk to all of you again today, and today we're taking a look at this Tier 10 Japanese destroyer, the Hayate. Do keep in mind that this ship is work in progress, which means that everything I talk about in this video can and potentially will change and should change by the time this ship makes it out onto the live servers. So first things first, let's talk about what Hayate, I guess, was hypothetically supposed to be. So it was supposed to be a Japanese hybrid, sort of a mix of what the Shima and the gearing would be if you kind of put them together and had them make a love child. And that's kind of what we get, sort of. Yeah. You can sort of hear this hesitation about the ship. And there is sort of the one major problem that I gotta talk about, which is that Hayate's concealment is complete garbage. Take a look at this particular chart. You see Hayate, look at everything that is stealthier than it. And you might take a look at the list and go, wait a minute, isn't that like the majority of the tier 9s and 10s? Yeah, that's kind of the problem. The things that are less stealthy than it, Harugumo, which you don't want to engage in a gunfight in because that thing will, well, quite literally kick your butt. Kleba, Mogador, Udaloy, Tashkent, and Khabarovsk, but then those ships play a very, very different role, so you don't really engage them in that kind of DD on DD fight. So really everything that is a DD that you might end up getting into a fight with, unless they're like tier 8s, and then of course you kind of beat down on them, but all the 9s and 10s, they're stealthier than you. And that changes the way you play because you become reactive to what happens. So you get spotted, oh crap, where is the thing? Again, RPF might help you here, but the other destroyer, if they know what they're doing, your life will be made quite hellish because you can't take the initiative. As soon as you get spotted, you're like, okay, it's probably in this direction, and I've got to be either defensive or maybe you can rush forward, but it depends on what else is around, right? So that destroyer's got some help, and they know how to spot you perfectly and not get spotted in return. You end up taking a lot of shells for a lot of nothing. Now, you do have to say that the Hayate does have good HE DPM, so I'm not denying that. However, your ability to use those HE shells on things is not all that universal. Why? Because you don't have the quarter pen that ships like Harugumo or Kirikaze has. You've got the standard 1/6 pen, so 20 millimeters of penetration. That's not really all that hot. And with 20 millimeters of penetration, you're really aiming for things like superstructure and things like that. So guns are good because they do reload reasonably fast for Japanese guns, and they traverse nicely and everything. But yeah, not really the widest selection of targets that you're constantly going to be gunning down. So what about torpedoes? Well, remember, she's supposed to be that kind of interesting hybrid between Shima and Gearing, right? Even though Shima and Gearing are both like way stealthier than this ship. Okay, but we're not going there for a second. Let's just talk about torpedoes. Shima's got significantly more torpedoes. Gearing just has better everything else. Like everything from reload to the torp detectability to the range, the speed, all better than Hayate. Hayate's torpedoes reload incredibly slowly. Like, it is one of the slowest torpedo reloads ever. Which, if you don't spec into like torpedo skills and torpedo modules, one of the big things you're going to figure out at the beginning of the game is you're too scared to actually get into any kind of hot early cap action because, well, if you take a hit and your torpedo tubes get incapacitated, get ready for another 153 second wait. It is painful. And having spent a few days trying pretty much every build, every kind of playstyle possible, my conclusion about Hayate is this is a ship that needs a buff, especially in the realm of concealment. Like, you can keep the super slow torpedo reload, that's fine. You can keep the guns the way they are and give her that sort of that hybrid, but she needs some of that concealment to play with because against other destroyers, it is incredibly rough because every other destroyer essentially has the initiative to either engage you or disengage from you. Well, you don't have that option. You get spotted, you're pretty much trying to disengage, right? Like, you get spotted by stuff, you're in trouble, because hell, if it's something like a gearing or something like that, I mean, that thing's got like this ridiculous advantage of spotting on you. And if that gearing knows what they're doing, you will never see them, and they will keep you lit until you die. Hayate is also not like super fast either. She's not slow, but dear lord, like, she's not the fastest of destroyers, nor is she very maneuverable at times. She feels kind of sluggish, but that could just be a subjective feeling, right? And I'm just going to make that clear. Could be a subjective feeling, because she doesn't really feel super agile. Anyways, going back to what I was talking about earlier, the issue with Hayate for me was that the few times that I had success with her, it didn't feel like it was me. It was like, oh, okay, like in this battle, like this is a battle where I'm going to do like 160k damage, and you're going to notice really quickly that like 140 something k of that damage had nothing to do with me. It was the fact that the enemy battleship was a straight line sailing battleship and came out and 8 torpedoes. Like, that's how it goes. I mean, if you think about it, with Shimakaze, you've got 15 torpedoes, you can lay out these nice torpedo walls, and so there's a bigger wall for the enemy team to deal with, and that's kind of a threat. You know, with gearing, you've got torpedoes that have pretty damn good speed, good range, and they have really good torpedo detect ranges, 1.4 I think, if I remember correctly. Hayate, you don't really have enough torpedoes. Torpedoes are also not super fast. 12 kilometers range, like less than gearings, 67 knots, and they get spotted at 1.7 kilometers. So unless, again, you run into a situation where you get the perfect ambush off, the perfect battleship sailing in a straight line, most times, yeah, like, you'd be fortunate to get the one hit there, the one hit there, and it's not particularly consistent. So, yeah, I mean, improvements, like I said, I mean, that concealment improvement I think would be like a major thing. You don't have to drop her to sort of best in class levels, but give her at least maybe like 200 to 300 meter better concealment, because at her current state she's rough. She is really, really rough, because everything that is in that range where you should be the threat, you don't outspot, right? And of course with carriers it helps even less. I had way too many games in Hayate where I ran to carriers, and then it was just like, why am I playing this ship? Why? What is the purpose of my life? And then I tell myself I've got to test this damn thing. Yeah, so the torpedoes just take forever, and that's a major issue. I mean, you could build her for full like torpedo spec, try to get the torpedo time down to as much as you can. I've tried. I think you get it down to about 117 seconds. It's basically the same as the Shima 12 kilometer torpedoes, but again, Shima's got more of them. That's what makes Shima deadly. This one just does not have enough to really make it like super, super lethal. And there you go. Like I said, that straight line sailing battleship they'll give you the kill just every so often, and you'll see me pull off another one in a perfect ambush where battleship is just oblivious, right? But honestly, in most cases, if the enemy battleships start paying attention and they start to realize that the destroyers are prowling around, good luck with Hayate. Like, really, really good luck, because, you know, if you get off that one salvo of torpedoes and you don't hit, you're sitting there for kind of borderline eternity. And so the only remaining thing you kind of have to say is, well, maybe it's the guns that will kind of make her better. But then if you wanted to use Japanese destroyer guns, Harugumo is a way better ship for that purpose. So, yeah. I mean, I'm not impressed. And that was sort of the big thing. Like, I played her, changed build, changed, you know, setup, changed another build, changed a different setup. And I could never find a way to say the Hayate is, like, she's a good ship. And I'm not even saying overpowered, just, like, good. She is competitive as a destroyer, has her own thing going for her. And they're close with her. I think she just needs couple 100 meters better concealment. Like, at least allow her to have the initiative in certain engagements and be close enough to some of the others where, you know, the margin isn't so great. Because if you run into like a legendary mod gearing as a Hayate, like, you might as well just forget it. Oh, by the way, I mentioned that perfect ambush. Well, here it is. This is as perfect as you're gonna get it with Hayate. It's like, there's the Republic, who doesn't realize that I'm there, even though I'm RPFing him, and just sailing in a beautiful straight line, even actually turning out a bit, like right there, to just help me land more torpedoes. And there you go. Like, oh, yeah. Yeah. But that's it. That was like the majority of my damage was through those two things. Alright, so take a look at the battle. You'll notice that my RPF is indicating in a certain direction. I know what's there. It's going to be the Yugumo, because the Grozovoy is way to the north, being just an absolute pest. So I know that this remaining destroyer here that I'm going to go after is going to be the Yugumo. Yugumo has a humongous advantage on you, especially in the realm of concealment. Like, if the Yugumo doesn't want to be found and wants to continue to keep you spotted but not get spotted itself, it can do that. And if the Yugumo has enough support, you're in trouble. And that was one of the sort of the major issues I had with Hayate when I was playing her, is that you're always the defensive destroyer, right? Because, like I showed you earlier in that table, everything that you can outspot, well, only one of those things you're likely to get into a fight with, and that's Harugumo. And a Harugumo is going to kick your ass like 9 days out of 10. Actually, 9.9 days out of 10. Everything else is never really going to be in your zone of engagement, like Khabarovsk and, you know, ships like that, like Tashkent, Udaloy. Like, those ships aren't going to be things that you engage, really. So the things that you have to bother with are the other destroyers, and you don't want to spot them. So you're always on the defensive. You can never really take an initiative on them, which is kind of a problem, unless you have like perfect support, like radar or whatever, and then, okay, you can get in there with your DPM and maybe do some harm. The only way, I think, when I've played Hayate, the only times I've played her and I said, okay, I think this works, is when you play just like totally selfish. You don't care about your team, you don't care about going for caps, you don't care for anything, you just find your perfect spot, sit there, and farm damage. And if you do that, I think Hayate might do okay, because her guns are, like I said, the DPM is good, right? You can set fires, you can do superstructure damage, it's doable. But she's not a destroyer that I would go into a cap and say, like, contest another destroyer with, just because most of those destroyers outspot you. And yeah. I mean, I've even tried like things like a quasi Yugumo style-esque, like TRB style gameplay. The torpedo reload booster doesn't really work, and again, it's the same problem. Get outspotted, and now everybody knows either where you are, and they can take evasive action, or you get engaged. And boy, this is not by any stretch of the imagination a good fun ship to play, in my opinion. Maybe I will be alone in this opinion. Maybe other people really like her, but with the way she is right now, she needs some help, right? When I was playing, for example, Friesland, I was like, okay, this ship, even though it's only got 2 turrets, 4 guns, you know, no torpedoes, she's fun. She's got something going for her. You know, there's something about her that is special, that makes her unique, that she can do things that other destroyers can't. Hayate, no way in hell. Like, you see what I'm talking about? Like, right here. That Yugumo just won that trade on that salvo. Because outspotted, couldn't spot that thing until it fired, able to time its salvo, and it's, you know, going behind this island perfectly. So I ate damage and I couldn't retaliate. That will be very common. Like, if enemy destroyers know what they're doing, you're not winning those trades. You can almost make the argument that with Hayate, and I will make this argument, like, the best games you're going to have with Hayate is games where the enemy team is filled with low win rate players. Like, you run into a team full of potatoes, and Hayate can kind of do some work, right? You'll torpedo some enemy battleships, you'll kill some destroyers with your guns, and like, yay, you know, there's some good that you can do. But you run up against semi-competent teams, and maybe I've run into one too many, and that's why I'm sort of more sour towards this particular ship, is run into the semi-competent enemies and you're suddenly going to realize that you cannot create anything for yourself. You know, you're reactive to enemy destroyers, you're reactive to a lot of situations. It's hard to create an opening for yourself, especially if they're screening or providing support for their team. And it's just rough. It's really, really rough as Hayate, because there's so little, if that's maybe the right way to put it, there's so little that you can create for yourself. Where with other destroyers, you have the ability to create certain kind of advantages, certain kinds of scenarios that you can exploit. Hayate, I didn't find that. You know, yeah, I've won the occasional gun duel with a ship, but you typically get out of that gun duel and you're not super healthy either. So, yeah, I mean, all in all, Hayate is, in her current form, like, highly disappointing as a ship. I mean, if they give her a concealment buff, then I can be on board with the ship for sure. Present state, no. I mean, this ship just no. Yeah, that concealment is too much of a penalty on Hayate. Too much. So much so that her other qualities, but notably the guns, I mean, unless you play super selfishly, doesn't really pan out either, you know? And don't talk about torpedoes. Just let's not talk about the torpedoes, because the torpedoes are they're painful. They're really painful. You know, I tried the full-blown torpedo reload as well, like 117 seconds, and it's better on the torpedoes. And you just like don't touch the guns at all, leave them at the stock 4-second reload. You do get off more torpedo salvos, you do, but again, that same problem persists. If you can't get into those good concealment situations where you can outspot certain enemy destroyers, I'm not saying outspot all of them, but outspot a certain amount of them that you can create certain openings for yourself. Yeah, other than that, she is... if she makes it into like a premium store and coal store or whatever, and she's in her present state, just avoid the ship like the plague. But then again, see, when I say this, I know there's always going to be like the one or two guys who are going to be like, no, we're going to go for that glutton for punishment thing. Like, you know, they're totally going to do it. But hey, if they do give her a concealment buff, if that does come up in the next little while, where you see a dev blog post where they say, hey, Hayate's getting a small boost to her concealment, and it's going to be like, let's say 200 to 300 meters, ideally like 300, I think. If it's like 300 meter bonus, then yeah, then the story for this ship becomes a lot better, a lot more compelling of a ship, and could bring some real interesting characteristics to the Japanese premium destroyers up at tier 10, even though I know she's going to be the only one. But hey, at least, you know, she's going to have something that really sort of stands out for her. And like I said, this battle, yeah, 166,000 damage, looks good on paper, but remember what I actually managed to blap, right? Majority of this damage was contributed by two not so bright battleships who were going nice straight lines, eating all of my torpedoes for me. So that's kind of what you're hoping for, but in most cases it just doesn't happen. In fact, you know, top of the team with Hayate, I think has happened only like twice, I think, in the time that I played her. Most times this is a ship that, at least for me, doesn't perform to any kind of acceptable standard. Anyways, folks, that's all my thoughts about the Hayate. You know, let me know what you think in the comment section below. Are you excited for her? Not excited for her? Do you wish to see some changes to her? Let me know in the comment section below. Other than that, take care of yourselves, have a great day, and I'll talk to all of you again really, really soon.